Really good episode we got coming today. Going to be doing a free agency preview.
But he's got everything you would expect out of a guy to just dominate the league. So why the hell hasn't it happened yet? I really think it's going to happen at some point. I could just keep, eating my foot here. I don't know.
Does Juju stay with the Steelers and keeps trying to do Corvette on logos until Von Bell smokes them? What are we thinking?
Or even if you're not in a position to win, you just can't let your number one receiver walk like this.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the WNP podcast. I am your host, Mike Mitchelson. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you feeling on this fine Tuesday afternoon?
Feeling pretty swell, actually. Other than the snow melting, I'm feeling good after recovering last week from a little operation. I'm way better than I thought I was going to be. I thought I was just going to be dead on the couch in bed for like 2 weeks. But now I'm vibing right now, so I'm hanging out. How are you?
I am doing really well, and I'm just excited because although the snow's melting and it's sad to see the snow leaving, it's supposed to be 50 tomorrow, and I can't wait because that means shorts get to come back out, and that's all I'm asking for, honestly. Short weather is the best weather. But Chase, really good episode we got coming today. Going to be doing a free agency preview. Before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about maybe some quarterback movement that's going to be coming, sometime soon here in the offseason. But first, I think we got to mention the mock draft we did last week. I thought it was pretty good. We had some comments on the YouTube video, one person disagreeing, one person, my dad, saying that, Chase is being intelligent. Not usually the case. Maybe let's quit those comments because my guy's head is getting too big, but...
Wait, who am I? Yeah!
Shout out Dylan Theta. Shout out.
Who will never listen to the show.
Yeah, true. He won't. That's okay because John does a pretty good impression too. Shout out John.
Facts. Shout out.
Who also will never listen to the show.
Facts. He'll also never come on the show again because he'll just sleep through it.
I mean, he is the Josh Hossain of WNP for a reason.
That he is.
All right, well, a lot of fun going to be coming today. There's a top 101 free agent list that Greg Rosenthal put out. You can follow along with us if you want to look that up. If not, no big deal. We're going to be going through every single player on that 101 player list. No. We're not actually doing that. I know some of you guys just got wide-eyed like, holy shit, did I even check the time? Holy shit, 4-hour episode? No, I'm good. No, not the case. Sorry. I know you wanted us to go that in depth. That's not going to be the case. Sorry. We're going to be talking, I don't know, maybe top 15, top 20 possible scenarios that we could see them, going to. Talking a little bit about Lions, little Bengals, because that is the hometown stuff. But first, Chase, quarterback talk, obviously. Russell Wilson, he put out there, or his agent put out there, Russell Wilson wants to stay in Seattle. However, he would also play for Dallas, Las Vegas, New Orleans, and Chicago. What are your initial thoughts on, I guess, first the statement? What does that statement mean to you? Is he trying to, pull off a trade even though he says he wants to be there? What's kind of the statement you're getting?
I literally was the first thing I was going to say, if you didn't say that, was just what the hell does that even mean? Because what does that mean? Russ does not want to be traded, but if you trade him, he'll go here. So he's been thinking about a trade, is what you're saying. It makes no sense. Like it's so strange. It sounds like they don't want to publicly say that Russ is demanding a trade because it looks bad on him, but that Russ wants to change the scenery. I mean, I don't blame him because he just gets the shit beat out of him in Seattle. Like they've never invested in protecting him, which I don't understand when you have a guy like Russ. He's a mobile quarterback, but he's not a rushing quarterback. He has to move around because he has no protection from his offensive line. He doesn't really run past the line of scrimmage unless it's a last resort type thing. So if you get him that protection, he can move around a little less. He'll get hit a little less. He won't be as tired, and he'll make better throws more consistently. He won't wear down in the second half of the season like we saw this season. season. But regardless, that's a tangent. So I'd understand why he'd want to get traded, but I really don't think it's going to happen. I'd imagine he stays in Seattle.
Yeah, and like Chase was mentioning, just because a quarterback can make plays doesn't mean you should force them to have to make plays every single freaking snap because their offensive line is so bad. I mean, that'll just catch up to you. Just look at the Bengals and Joe Burrow. You know, he got injured for a reason. He was trying to make a play outside of the pocket because the Bengals offensive line is terrible. But I think it's just kind of putting pressure on the Seahawks front office and Pete Carroll because obviously you just mentioned it. They haven't invested in helping Russ on the offensive side of the ball. Outside of, you know, some nice wide receivers, the offensive line's been pretty bad. The tight end position has kind of been a endless rotation of suboptimal players for the last couple of years. Outside of Chris Carson, who constantly gets injured, they haven't really had the running backs. So I think it's more of putting pressure on the front office saying, look, Russ has all the cards in his hand, you know? I don't know. Like, he's got the advantage, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. He's got the leverage because without Russ, the Seahawks are going nowhere, especially in that division. And if Russ wants something, they better listen because he is a top 5 quarterback, top 3 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, if he ever went and officially demanded a trade, he's not a guy you just can't trade. You know, Deshaun Watson, the Texans, they theoretically could hold because, you know, he's still a younger player. He's obviously established himself as a great quarterback, but he doesn't, you know, have the tenure. He doesn't have the Super Bowl runs that Russell Wilson has. If Russell Wilson wants to trade, like, you have no choice. You got to trade him. That's just kind of how it works in sports. You know, these veteran guys who have proven themselves, when they want something, you usually try to, you know, cooperate with them, and that's, you know, that would happen. So if he wants to out, just officially demand the trade, and he'll be traded before the season starts.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a Brady situation. Like, Russ is Brady, Pete Carroll is Bill Belichick, you know? So
if Belichick was an average coach.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So, I mean, he looked pretty average this year with his Patriots team, but...
I mean, he had Cam Newton, who I throw the ball better than, and I have 2 holes in each arm.
Superman, baby. MVP. That's Superman.
My God. Yeah, like, do you, like, I don't understand how an NFL quarterback throws the ball the way he does. It looks so uncomfortable.
Yeah. I don't know. But... yeah, all the leverage to Russ. Let's talk about the 4 teams he mentioned, Chase. Vegas, Chicago, New Orleans, and why am I forgetting the last one? I have it right here in front of my face. Dallas, of course. Let's talk about Dallas first, Chase. Obviously, Dak Prescott, his future is kind of up in the air because right now he doesn't have the contract. However, there's talk, you know, he's going to get franchise tagged by the Cowboys because obviously they can't find a deal. Dak wants upwards of $40 million a year, whereas Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are looking around that $30 million a year range. Is this a situation where you could actually see something playing out? Maybe Dallas trades Dak and the 10th overall pick for Russ and maybe, you know, some other stuff too. But is this a situation you could actually see playing out?
I really don't. I don't see the Cowboys making that type of trade. Like they want, like, Jerry Jones wants Dak to be the quarterback, and Dak lost a lot of his leverage with the injury this year. You know, he reportedly turned down some big contracts and then getting hurt, even though he was playing at a great pace. You know, you could say, oh, you got this really bad injury. It's something we can't, you know, take a chance on. We got to give you less money, less guaranteed money. And that's something that he might just end up accepting. But regardless, he'll get tagged. I really can't see a tag and trade with a quarterback for another quarterback. It's like that type of stuff doesn't happen in the NFL, and I really think the Cowboys want Dak to be their guy.
Yeah. I mean, if they can get Russ, I feel like, you know, that's the case, but it's got to be tough, you know. But we'll move on to Chicago, Chase. Could this be like a Khalil Mack plus for Russ Wilson?
This is such an interesting, like, spot to go because, you know, I could see it happening. There's the obvious need at quarterback. I don't know exactly what their salary cap situation would be like and what they would need to give back. It would just really suck to have to give up a guy like Khalil Mack. I mean, obviously you would have to get Russ Wilson, especially when you don't have, you know, the loaded draft picks, so you traded them for Khalil Mack. This would be a tough trade to pull off, I really think, but if they could pull it off, I think it would work out really well. If there was any, like, chance that it was pulled off before free agency, it would guarantee Allen Robinson would stay. They'd attract more free agents taking discounts, and Chicago would be an immediate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I agree. And Khalil Mack is a phenomenal player, but the impact that a quarterback has on a team over a defensive end is astronomical. If you're able to get a Russell Wilson, or even someone that's a little bit lesser, you got to give up something big. The quarterback situation in Chicago right now is brutal. So if they were able to give up Khalil Mack to bring in Russell Wilson, I think that's a no-brainer. But let's talk about the New Orleans Saints now, Chase. I feel like this is probably not going to happen because Taysom Hill is the guy. He's an elite quarterback.
It's not going to happen because they don't have the money, not because Taysom Hill's an elite quarterback. Like, they're like $100 million negative. Like, how the hell are they going to swing this? There's just no chance that it happens.
Well, it's not the money then. It's because Taysom Hill's elite. I just love how that narrative was a thing for a while, and now everyone's just dropped that narrative and it's like, okay, Jameis is the guy. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like, all last offseason we talked about how Taysom Hill has no passing touchdowns. So I don't know. It was a terrible storyline to begin with, and I am so thankful that it has ended because elite quarterback, not the case. All right, Chase, Las Vegas here. This one's interesting because Derek Carr, you and I, we love Derek Carr. I mean, we don't think he's an amazing quarterback. We think he's a pretty solid quarterback. But if John Gruden can upgrade to Russell Wilson, why wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that something like this could happen. If they give up Derek Carr and a draft pick, maybe 2 draft picks, got Russell Wilson, it would allow the Seahawks to use those draft picks on offensive linemen, maybe get offensive linemen free agency where they can. Then get that protection for Derek Carr, and then it would obviously give the Raiders Russell Wilson, and they have some decent offensive pieces to work with. Obviously, the receivers we're looking for a little more this year, kind of underwhelming. But you got Darren Waller. Henry Ruggs is a burner who has a decent route tree and still has good hands, even though he's a burner. And Brian Edwards is a guy that a lot of people thought was going to have a great rookie season. Both those guys kind of underwhelmed, but they could have great years. And if you got Russ thrown to you, I mean, that just increases your chances. This is something that I could I could see this kind of happening. I think Derek Carr would have to go back to the Seahawks, and this would leave both teams. I don't want to say leave both teams happy because how happy can the Seahawks be trading away, Russell Wilson, but they would be able to survive,
Yeah, absolutely. And I just can't imagine the feeling that Raiders fans would get going into the new stadium with Russ at the helm. That would be so damn cool. I don't know, if fans are going to be allowed. I think they had a couple fans over this past season. But anyways, like with COVID stuff, like let's just say it just ends completely and fans can, 100% capacity come back. How cool would it be to be a Raiders fan going into this beautiful stadium and seeing you can now have a quarterback that has a little swagger to him, a quarterback that, is at that top level of football rather than Derek Carr, who, cool dude, but he's not a guy that, is going to get you really excited.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that would be great. And I really don't want Russell Wilson going to the Bears if he gets traded. I don't want him in this division. So I'd be all for it. If he was to get traded, the Raiders would probably be my favorite spot.
And can I just say that if you had Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Justin Herbert in the same division.
Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck, my bad. What? You just said Andrew Luck. It made me think of Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck coming back to return with the Denver Broncos. Guaranteed.
Oh, my God. That would be something.
You know how good that division would be?
It would be ridiculous. I mean, imagine if D-Watts got traded to the Broncos because there's, some talk about that. And then Russ gets traded to the Raiders. What the hell?
Why does it have to be the AFC, though?
The AFC's got so many damn quarterbacks, dude.
They do. They do. But Chase, before we move into the free agency preview, I've got one more situation to talk about. Kind of a would you rather type thing here. So obviously you got the Miami Dolphins, a very nice team, but still hold the number 3 slot in the upcoming draft thanks to the Houston Texans. You've got the Philadelphia Eagles. That's kind of becoming a shitter. Who knows what's happening there? They've got the number 6 overall pick and Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback. I think that both teams should look to draft a quarterback because I'm not too sold on either player. But if you're starting a franchise right now, who would you rather have, Tua or Jalen Hurts?
Oh, that's Tua, not even close, and I don't even like Tua. Jalen Hurts, I thought he was nothing even close to an NFL prospect. Sure, he had a great college season, but he didn't throw the ball in a way that translates to the NFL. We saw it this year, dude. 52 completion percentage. They're ugly throws. He struggled. He's a good runner. Sure, that's great. If you know, I don't like this whole idea of trying to change every player to a Taysom Hill type role. But I really think Hurts could kind of work in that type of way where you could maybe have him throw on trick plays. You know, he's a really powerful runner. He's got size. He's got strength. You know, let him run the ball, run and truck some guys. And maybe if he can catch a little bit, then that'd be great. Like he's just not I really don't think he's a good enough quarterback in the NFL. And I really don't think that of Tua either. But if I really had to choose one, like I'd easily put my money on Tua.
I think outside of Tua's second game where he looked pretty good, I think outside of that game, Jalen Hurts looked better in my opinion. So I mean, I'd probably go Tua still because of the upside that we saw from him in Alabama and kind of the upside that, you know, he's always been looked at as a prospect. But I would just rather Justin Fields and Trey Lance, and that's what they should do at number 3 and number 6.
Clearly, are you kidding me? I mean, I don't want Trey Lance going to the Eagles. I would hate that so much, being a big Trey Lance guy. I'd much rather him go to a different situation, rather than go to a team like the Panthers, for example. But yeah, like I really think both those teams should look into the quarterback situation. You know, whether it be trading for D Watts, one of them, or just drafting, I think they need to think about it heavily.
I wish Johnny wasn't so shy on the mic because he's a big Tua lover. He's a big Dolphin lover, and he does not like the idea of them going after a quarterback unless it's like Trevor Lawrence who drops the 3, which isn't happening. But, I mean, come on, you got to think about it. Even if Zach Wilson's there, Tua hasn't really shown enough yet. Maybe we go quarterback. But besides that, Chase, let's move on to free agency. A little preview coming up here. There's a list of 101 free agents that Greg Rosenthal wrote, and unfortunately, him and Chris Wesseling, they did this list together for 7 years, and unfortunately, Chris Wesseling did pass away. He had cancer, and gosh, just a terrible disease, and that's someone who I actually listened to a lot. I listened to their podcast when I was at Kroger doing my nighttime work like 4 or 5 years ago. So really unfortunate passing there. I obviously didn't know him personally or anything, but from everything that we see, he was great in the NFL media world.
Yeah, you know, it's very sad. So obviously, you know, he's in our thoughts. It's going to be kind of, you know, weird traversing going forward, you know, without such a prominent media member. But, you know, it's just a sad situation. I don't really know. You said it all pretty well, really.
Yeah, and so this 101 NFL free agents list, there's one name on here that we can already rule out, J.J. Watt. Breaking news, I think it was Monday, he signed with the Arizona Cardinals. Chase, what do you think about that fit?
Interesting. I think this could be. I don't know. Like I think it could work out. You know, they have a great pass rush now, but I just don't know how ready to win the Cardinals are. Cliff Kingsbury, I've really started to raise more and more questions about him as time's gone on in the NFL. I just don't know if he's the dude, you know, to coach that team. But I mean, they're building up the talent level to like the roster to really push for a Super Bowl. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this defense could be, you know, pretty good. You got Budda Baker, who's really good. You got Jones and Watt now. And if they can really get Isaiah Simmons in here and start to use him to his best ability, then that could be a pretty good defense. And one where if Russell Wilson stays in Seattle, he's going to have a really hard time against. But Chase, we'll now move on to names that have not been signed already. We already talked about Dak Prescott. We think most likely he's going to be back with Dallas, so we won't talk about him. Let's start off with one of the top wide receivers in this free agent class, Allen Robinson. And it's not a headline name, I don't think, but I think when you just look at production and ability on the field, he's probably the number one guy, even though he gets overshadowed because he's in such a bad offense led by Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, I mean, really going back to college, he's never had a good quarterback throwing to him, and he's done what he's done with horrible quarterbacks. So he's going to walk unless the Bears pull off something magical before free agency. It's a guarantee that he walks. He deserves to play with a good quarterback. I don't know where he might go. Maybe he'll follow Deshaun Watson wherever the hell he goes or something. I don't know, but like, if Deshaun Watson gets traded early in this free agency period, of course that is. But he's going somewhere. He'll be a number one receiver. He's going to go to a team with at least competent quarterback, and he's going to have a stupid season.
Are you trashing the boat?
I am trashing the boat, even though I love him.
The boat.
Yeah, he's the man. He's just a cool dude, and like he wasn't a really bad NFL quarterback. Just take away like 3 reallys, and then you're good.
Blake Bortles is awesome, better than Gardner Minshew.
No,
he was the Gardner Minshew before Gardner Minshew came around, guaranteed.
Sure.
All right, Chase. Well, let's stay on the wide receiver route here. So we got a couple more guys to talk about. A couple guys that are big impact players. We got Chris Godwin, Kenny Galladay, Juju Smith-Schuster, all younger guys who have had very successful careers so far. Let's talk about Kenny Galladay first, because on Tuesday we did get a little bit of news out of the Lions camp about Kenny Galladay. You're pretty sure that he's getting franchise tagged.
Yeah, I would safely bet on it. I mean, like you can't, even if you're not in a position to win, you just can't let your number one receiver walk like this. I'd be fine with a tag and trade. I think that'd make sense because you can get a decent little penny for him, or like a decent little price for him. So I'd be good with a tag and trade, and I could see that happening. But there's no chance he just walks for free. Like Detroit will not allow that.
I mean, if he walks, Detroit is screwed. They have no one in their wide receiver core as of right now. Marvin Jones, not under contract. Amendola, not under contract. Galladay, not under contract. They need to tag him or get him back through a regular contract, whatever it is. Because if they don't, then with that number 7 pick, maybe instead of looking at like a Micah Parsons, you're looking at a Devontae Smith or a Jalen Waddle because you don't have anyone else.
That'd be interesting. I'm really not a fan of taking a wide receiver there because, like, you take a wide receiver that high if you're that receiver away from being a playoff team, and the Lions just aren't that. They can get receivers later in the draft. I look forward to seeing Quintez Cephas get a little more opportunity too. He showed some flashes. He had some drops too last year, but he was a pretty sure-handed receiver in college, so maybe that's just some kind of shakiness. Yeah, as we're hoping we can see him develop as an NFL player. But I got to mention something from that press conference too that I was saving for the show. I didn't tell you about it beforehand. So Dan Campbell was talking about how he doesn't like referring to tight ends as tight ends because nowadays the modern tight end is a lot more it's more about the move tight end compared to just the blocking tight end. Talking about like Jared Cook, how he was essentially just an extra receiver on the field. So, I mean, with that kind of talk, maybe they like Kyle Pitts there because Kyle Pitts, you can line him up and as an H-back, you can line him up at tight end. You can put him in the slot. You can even just make him a flat-out receiver. Like, he's kind of, a jack of all trades when it comes to that. So, who knows?
I think it would be sweet to have Pitts and Hawk on the same team. But, Chase, let me ask.
So cool.
As a Lions fan, and maybe even give me your perspective, then give me the Graham perspective as well, how would it feel to take another first-round top 10 tight end?
Well, to me, it would feel like a kick in the nuts, to be honest, even if it is Kyle Pitts. Like, how many tight ends can you take that early? How many first-round tight ends can you take? We already failed on 2. Hawk's looking like he's going to be a success story, so, we got that going for us at least. And Kyle Pitts is, it would be really shocking if he doesn't find success in the NFL because he has every single trait and has the production to back it too. But it would still not feel great because it's like, okay, now that just feels like same old Lions type of stuff. And I think Graham might be in the same boat as me there. But obviously Kyle Pitts is like a different type of talent where if you're going to take a tight end this early after taking so many, he's the one guy you do.
I honestly think Graham might freak out. I think, like, even if you brought it up, like, hey, did you hear that thing Dan Campbell was talking about? Maybe Kyle Pitts is an option. No.
Oh, I mean, I'll bring it up tonight because me, Graham, Johnny, and Alec are going. Since Alec just turned 21, we're all going out just to some brewery, or whatever. So I'll bring it up tonight and get their reaction.
All right, make sure to let me know, and then I'll post her on the old Twitter with this episode. Also, sick invite, but let's now move on to
dude. Alec won't care. Come right down.
No, I know. I think Alec told me to calm down at some point, but I'm up at school, a little busy. But Chase, let's talk about two of the other top wide receivers, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster. What do you foresee for their situations? Does Chris Godwin stay on with the Bucs, try to repeat? Does Juju stay with the Steelers and keeps trying to do Corvette on logos until Von Bell smokes them? What are we thinking?
So I'll start with Godwin because this is going to be quick. Godwin's getting tagged. That just is what it is. He wants the money, but the Bucs don't have the money. You can tag him for 1 year and then pay him next season, or he walks, whatever you do. But he's getting tagged. They're pushing for another Super Bowl. Moving on to Juju, he wants to be in Pittsburgh. He's talked about that, but I really can't see it happening. They're kind of tight in the cap. They're trying to figure that out with Big Ben. He'll take a reduced hit on a salary cap. But that salary won't be used to pay Juju. It's just not worth it. You've got Deontay Johnson, you've got Chase Claypool, and then you can get someone, like they hit on receivers really well in the draft. They can get someone second, third, fourth round of the draft to play the role that Juju did for a lot cheaper. Juju's going to have to go somewhere else, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, I think Juju's on the move as well, but I'm not sure if it's a lock for Chris Godwin to be tagged just because you got Shaq Barrett out there, who's going to be a free agent. You got Levante David out there. Why wouldn't they tag one of those guys and sign AB to a cheaper contract than what they could get for Godwin?
Because Godwin was their favorite target. Like, it was Tom Brady's favorite target. It was very clear. He was Tom Brady's
Scotty
first
Miller.
look. Okay, Scotty Miller is a different breed. That's fair. But, like, Chris Godwin was Tom Brady's first look on the offense and every single passing play that he was out there for. And that's the type of receiver that Tom Brady thrives with. And he's like a Julian Edelman if Julian Edelman was like ridiculously talented, honestly. And so the fact that Tom Brady can have that type of receiver, if Tom says, hey, we're keeping Godwin, they're keeping Godwin.
All right, well then let's talk about those other two players that I mentioned, Shaq Barrett and Levante David. Levante David, a little bit older, but really a good linebacker still. He helped Devin White in, continuing his growth as a young player. Looks to be a phenomenal player going forward in his career. Shaq Barrett, a guy who really didn't see much success until he came to the Bucs, but once he came to the Bucs, he blew up. A complete game changer when it comes to the pass rush. Currently ranked number 8 in the top 101 free agents, according to Greg Rosenthal. What are going to happen to both of these guys if Godwin is the one getting the tag?
So I would probably say Levante David's the one that stays. I think they only can really keep one of the two at that point with the way their salary is. I feel like Levante David would be the one they can get a little cheaper, being a veteran, want another Super Bowl, where Shaq Barrett, he's going to want to cash in really quick off this production. He just blew up and he deserves to get paid because he played well. And, players like to chase that money if they can. He already won a Super Bowl. So if he can go get a big payday and maybe even go somewhere else and have a decent chance still, well, why wouldn't he do that? So I think they keep at least one of the two, and it's going to be Levante.
Yeah, I think that could be the case, and it'd definitely be interesting because, what's that defensive line going to look like now for Tampa? If Shaq Barrett goes and Ndamukong Suh, I think his contract is up as well. A lot of question marks for the Bucs as a lot of big names need to get signed. But Chase, let's stay on the defensive side of the ball. Let's talk some more edge rushers. There's a couple good ones out there. You got Bud Dupree. You've got Trey Hendrickson. How about Carl Lawson? Or even Jadeveon Clowney? Is there any names there that really intrigue you?
Well, I want to start with Carl Lawson.
What a beauty.
I would be shocked if the Bengals don't tag him. It would be stupid if the Bengals don't tag him. Let's put it that way. He's too big of a piece to lose. And I think the Bengals are close to being a competitive team if maybe they have a chance next year. So if you can keep this dude and show him that they're competitive, he'll want to stay there. And, they can continue to develop him. But if they let him walk, I think he's going to be just one of the biggest paid players in free agency, especially if there's no big quarterback signed. I think he might receive the biggest payday because he is a legitimate, just ridiculous pass rusher. And even on the Bengals, he's a team that's perennially a bottom of the league team. He's just stood out and has been a noticeable player.
Yeah, and from everything that I've seen from Bengals insiders and everything like that, Carl Lawson will be back with the Bengals on the franchise tag. And if that's the case, I can't wait because he is I talked about him a little bit in the mock draft and said how Azeez Ojulari kind of reminds me of Carl Lawson. He's a guy that not doesn't necessarily have the numbers when it comes to sacks, but the amount of pressure that he puts on the quarterback is next to none. I mean, he is always disrupting the offensive line of the other team. He's always putting some type of pressure in, and that's even when he's double teamed. Could you imagine if he had someone on the other side? And I like Sam Hubbard. He's no slouch. But could you imagine if he had another top tier player on the other side? It'd be unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, I got to agree. So, hell, if the Bengals go and if I don't know what their salary cap situation is, but I mean, I love Jadeveon Clowney, and you still might be able to get him semi cheaper because he's never like actually produced in the NFL. Like he's had solid seasons, but he's never lived up to his his first overall draft pick pedigree. But he's got everything you would expect out of a guy to just dominate the league. So why the hell hasn't it happened yet? I really think it's going to happen at some point. I could just keep, eating my foot here. I don't know. I think he could really be this, those type of guys, those veteran players that have great second half of their careers. He could be that type of dude. And I mean, hell, if they could bring in Jadeveon Clowney for cheap for a couple seasons, that's a pretty deadly pass rush there.
Yeah, I think Clowney's awesome. I also love Yannick Ngakoue, who's out there as well. But Chase, let's move on to a different position. Let's talk about quarterback here. A couple names out there like Jameis Winston, Cam Newton. What are we thinking? Is there going to be a big quarterback market for some of these guys? Because there's 5 quarterbacks that I think are capable of starting in this draft. So what do you think the markets are going to look like for these 2 guys?
I would safely say that Jameis is a starter next year and that Cam Newton is not a starter. Cam will go somewhere and he'll be like a Marcus Mariota. He'll be a prioritized backup. He'll go in if you need him to. Hell, you can just throw him in on the goal line and run the ball because he is such a powerful runner. He's just a freaking linebacker at the quarterback position. But Jameis, like he had some success running the ball. Obviously, he had a lot of failures, a lot of funny failures, some bad interceptions. But he still is an upgrade from a lot of starting QBs in the league right now. I mean, if the Broncos aren't drafting a quarterback, I just don't think that's happening. So if they sign a guy like Jameis Winston, give him the chance, he's obviously better than Drew Lock. I mean, we maybe could see some magic there.
Yeah, I like Jameis a lot, and I'm also a big fan of Marcus Mariota, who is with the Raiders right now. I think if both of those guys were able to get a new opportunity, I would absolutely love that because coming into their draft year, I was a big fan of both and was hoping to get a little bit more out of them. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Both became backups, but I think both deserve another shot. But, Chase, let's talk about running backs as well. You got some good names out there. Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Kenyon Drake, not really that good of a name, but he's out there as well. There's some people that are big Kenyon Drake fans. Not the case for me. But we could see a lot of running backs getting moved, and to have a top name like Aaron Jones out there, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones, like we talk about the Dolphins drafting a running back, but if they don't want to draft a running back, Aaron Jones is the dude that they need to sign. Like that'd be just a great fit. He's a kind of do it all type back, and he's got the talent to be legitimate number one. We've seen it before, so that would be one hell of a fit, dude. I would love that.
Absolutely. And then you also look at Todd Gurley, Duke Johnson just got cut. James White's out there as well. Leonard Fournette only on a 1-year deal. There's a lot of guys there in the backfield that could make a big impact. Now, I think we need to talk about Leonard Fournette because of what he did in the playoffs, what he did in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl Lenny, playoff Lenny. Is he coming back to Tampa?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. If I were the Bucks, I would probably let him go and try to draft a running back if I can, because you can get some guys like they need someone to catch the ball out of the backfield. Like Tom Brady, he's missing that, and James White. Hell, maybe they bring James White and they don't need to, and they can just let Fournette walk and just not draft one. But I would say that they're not getting James White. They'll probably draft one if they can get like a Kenny Gainwell. That's just absolutely perfect for them. And Fournette can go get an opportunity somewhere else. He's still a good running back. I don't think he should have been cut from the Jags. I think you're in that same boat too. He deserves to be on a roster and he deserves playing time.
Yeah, I agree there. Well, Chase, let's talk a little bit about the Lions. Obviously, our listener base is pretty Detroit heavy, so we'd be remiss not to talk about them, what their current situation looks like. What do we think is the best plan for the Lions going forward into this free agency? Obviously, we talked about the franchise tag coming to Kenny Golladay is likely, but you got a lot of other guys that could be leaving. You got Okwara, you got Marvin Jones, a couple other guys, and then also in free agency, you always want to try to add something. What are we looking at with the Lions here?
So I say tag and trade Kenny Galladay is the move, and then they can maybe sign a wide receiver in at a transition type of role. Corey Davis, if he's looking for a payday, he could probably get it from a team like the Lions, for example, and that'd be cool to see him in Detroit. So I think trading Kenny Galladay and then signing a receiver to maybe even 3 in free agency to play a legitimate role, that'd be great. See what kind of receiver Goff might want, and just kind of work with him. Julian Okwara, I think he's a very large piece of this defense. I would hate to see him walk. I hope they can figure out something. He's still a young dude at 26. He's got a lot of years left in the league. He could still be around when this Detroit team hopefully turns it around and becomes a playoff team. So if you can sign him to a long-term deal, I mean, hell, go for it. But yeah, like Marvin Jones, he can walk. Like what's the point of resigning a guy like him? He's 30, 31. He's getting up there. He wants to win. He wants to get paid. And he can go somewhere and do that. He's a talented wide receiver. He had a lot of success in Detroit, and I think he'll go somewhere else and continue to have that success.
Yeah, for sure. And then Graham, our Lions enthusiast on the show, he even mentioned to us how cool would it be to have a John Johnson's or, a solid safety like that, or Justin Simmons or something come in for the Lions. But I questioned, do you guys even have the cap for that? Cap is a little bit tight for the Lions this year, but would addressing safety be a good option here?
No. It'd be cool, sure, but that might add a win or two to the team. And what's the point of the Lions getting 6 or 7 wins like as a ceiling? There's just no benefit. Why have the team that is clearly nowhere near a playoff team pick in the 8 to 13 range in the draft? There's just no benefit to it. They just embrace being bad for a couple seasons. Just deal with it. In this draft, I saw a mock draft. Logan Lammerreiter, I think it's how you say his name. He's a Lions beat writer. He mocked Trevor Moehrig in the second round, and I love that pick. He's a safety. Will Harris is not a good safety, and he needs to be replaced. So grabbing Moehrig would be great. If there's someone cheap and free agency that you want to give a shot, sure, that's fine. In terms of safeties or defensive backs, but it's just a waste to try to sign veteran guys.
And who was this? Tracy Walker, right? That's the guy that Graham brought up and said him plus John Johnson or like a Marcus Williams or something would be nice. Can you tell me a little bit about Tracy Walker? Because as someone who's only watched, 3 or 4 games over the last year of the Lions, he's not a guy I know much about, and not knowing about a guy kind of makes me think he's not really the guy.
So he was looking to have a really huge season in the 2020 season, but kind of underwhelmed, as obviously everybody did in the Lions. But he was probably the defensive MVP, honestly. If he was my vote for the 2019 team, he really broke out. A team that was very underwhelming. He stepped up. He had a big role, and he played pretty good for a team that was very disappointing, as I just said. But this season was just pretty lackluster. We expected a lot of big things. We expect him to, maybe be a borderline Pro Bowl type safety or start taking the steps to becoming that kind of guy. And it just didn't happen. He still has the raw tools. He's good in coverage. He's good pretty much in like any spot on the field in the secondary that you would want a safety to go to. But it's just, how high is his ceiling? I don't know. I wouldn't call him, a top 5, top 10 safety type talent, but he could be like a really good safety for your team.
Gotcha. So some expectations that just weren't exactly met, kind of like expecting the Lions to have a top 10 defense.
That wasn't me.
No, it was not.
That was not me.
That's why you're still on the show. Some of those takes. Woo. All right. Well, cool. Well, I do want to talk about, lastly, with the Lions, offensive line. Jared Goff, he's a quarterback that, he's a nice thrower of the football, but it seems like when he gets under pressure or when he loses a little bit of confidence, he just completely crumbles. And the Lions, they've got a decent offensive line. However, with such a good offensive line class in the draft and free agency, could you see the Lions addressing that whatsoever to try to keep Jared Goff at his prime?
Oh, the Lions absolutely will. Dan Campbell mentioned that today too. That O-line depth is something that they need to add. So it's not going to be a first-round selection. I would really be shocked if it was. But at the same time, depending who's there, I would imagine Penny Sewell's gone. But if they want to go Rashawn Slater or Christian Darrisaw, I wouldn't even really, care that much. I'd be fine with that. I would imagine that they address it more, second, third, fourth round type range where they're trying to get guys that, have shown the signs and shown the physical tools, and they just, need to worry on, the technical side of it a little bit. And then in terms of free agency, I'd imagine that, there's a couple guys they had, maybe 2 or 3, but nobody that's going to be a starter.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good for sure. So there's Chase's thoughts about the Lions and their possible free agency. I feel like it's kind of going to be a underwhelming free agent for the Lions. I mean, at least compared to the last 2 years, they've had a pretty solid last 2 years when it came to free agency. This year don't have as much cap to maneuver, so it might be a little bit lacking, I guess, but it'll still be a free agency nonetheless. So let's talk about the Bengals now, Chase, your favorite team here. So obviously you would expect AJ Green to be gone. You expect Carl Lawson to get the tag. You would hope, as a big Bengals fan, you would hope that William Jackson gets re-signed, as he's obviously their number one corner.
Right.
John Ross, he's gone.
Yep, easy.
So there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of moving parts, I guess, with the Bengals this offseason. Some guys leaving, some guys staying. There's one name that I want to talk about that doesn't really seem like that big of a piece to this Bengals team, but I feel like he is easily the number 3 player that needs to be targeted by the Bengals within their own team. Carl Lawson 1, Jackson 2. Josh Bynes. Josh Bynes is an older linebacker who is pretty good. He's not an amazing linebacker. He's not incredible. He is a little older, slowing down a little bit. However, he brings leadership and he brings so much great tackling ability that this Bengals team does not have.
Yeah, so as a lot of people know, and obviously as you and Bengals fans know, the Bengals addressed the linebacking group, pretty heavily in the 20 draft. So if they just let a guy like Josh Bynes walk, he's a big mentor to that group. There's a group that had a lot of physical and raw ability that they were trying to develop, really is what it was. And a guy like Bynes is there to just really help that. He helps in tackling form, helps leadership, helps you becoming a pro. You can probably you might have to pay a little more than another team might for him, for example, but I don't imagine you had to give up a ton of money. That's a big player for them to lose. I really think that you would see their linebacking group take a big hit if he left.
Yeah, 100%. And then with the Bengals, obviously, I think the top 2 positions of need, offensive line and defensive line. I don't think outside of Carl Lawson, they really address the defensive line that much. I feel like they'll probably save that for the second and third round of the draft. However, I've been seeing some stuff that maybe they bring in Joe Thuney, and that they're actually the favorites for Joe Thuney right now, who is number 17 on Greg Rosenthal's 101 list. An offensive guard can definitely help out the Bengals. There's even been talk that what if they go out and get a Joe Thuney and maybe even a Taylor Moton and then go Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith at 5 rather than a Penei Sewell.
All right, you know what? I figured it out for you. I don't know how much money the Bengals have, but we're just going to make up that they have money. They're going to sign Joe Thuney, Taylor Moton, and David Andrews, so they're going to get 3 starting offensive linemen. They're going to draft Jamar Chase, is going to fall to them, and then they're also in free agency. This would be my favorite free agent signing for the Bengals, maybe one of my favorite in the league. They're going to sign Jonnu Smith as well to play tight end for them. How perfect would that be?
Yeah, I like it. I think we got to take a name off. They've got $43 million, which is a good amount. I think they sit 8th right now in cap space. But take out Andrews because
that obviously it's just a stretch, but still.
Yeah, but I would love that. And there's even been rumors that Gerald Everett is, getting looks from the Bengals, which is cool, but I like Jonnu Smith better, also like Hunter Henry better. But either way, either of those 3 tight ends, an upgrade from CJ Uzama and, Drew Sample. I couldn't remember his name.
Oh, that's funny. But I think Jonnu's just such a good fit because I really think Joe Burrow would thrive with a true, move tight end. Jonnu, he can still block, like, don't get me wrong, but he's a legitimate, like, red zone threat, and he's good, like, down the field, 10, 15 yards downfield, in the middle of the field. Like, that would be just such a great fit.
Yeah, I like him for sure. And hey, I'm sure that if they did get all three of those offensive lineman signings, not only Joe Burrow being just extremely happy, but Joe Mixon too. Joe Mixon's going to be coming back from an injury, looking to have a rebound year because he's such a weird, it's just such a weird situation with him. I mean, he wins the AFC rushing title 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. 2 years ago, he was pretty average until the last couple of games. And then last year, he was average for the first 2 or 3 games and then started to blow up and then got injured. So such a weird situation. Hopefully with the offensive line coach coming back from 2017, which is when or was it 2018? 2018, which was when Mixon won the rushing title. Hopefully, something good can be coming there too. But that's going to do it for the free agent talk, Chase, unless there was anyone else you wanted. Oh, Ryan Fitzmagic. Fitzmagic, of course. He's probably the biggest baller of all time in the NFL, and he's better than Tua. You think he stays in Miami, or you think he gets a job somewhere else? Because no matter what, he's going to have a job.
I think he gets a job somewhere else. A place that I think I actually would like, especially if they don't address it or don't plan to address it in the draft, would be Washington, honestly. Right now, it's looking like Taylor Heineke is going to be the guy. And, he had some success, and, it was a short little brief stint. But who knows how long that can go on where, Fitzmagic, for example, he looked pretty good this year. Obviously there's boom bust potential every time he's throwing the ball. He has some ugly plays, but he has some great plays too. He usually blows up for at least 1 or 2 games a year. And really with Washington, with that defense, that's kind of all they need. If the defense struggles, that can be his blow-up game. And it could be a really good, compliment, Fitzmagic's skill set compared to the receivers, the running back group, the offensive line, and then that defense as a whole, of course. I think that'd be an awesome fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is going to be it for our free agent talk. We tried to mention a lot of the bigger names and then talked about the Lions and the Bengals. If you want us to talk about your team, maybe, I don't know, the Giants or the Bills, I mean, both of those teams suck, but if you want us to talk about, your team, what possibly they could do during the free agency, let us know down in the comments. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, when new episodes are coming out, all that kind of good stuff, make sure to go follow us at WNP Sports Pod on Twitter. It's again at WNP Sports Pod on Twitter. If you also want to join our Facebook group and follow our Instagram page, those links will also be down in the description, and that would be really cool because more updates about everything that's going on are there as well. If you could, give us a like, a comment, and a subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Also, make sure to ring the bell for notifications because sometimes the YouTube algorithm's all weird. It doesn't show up in the YouTube subscribe box, all that kind of stuff. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could follow us and give us a 5-star rating, we'd really appreciate that. But that's going to be it for the show. We want to thank you so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.